Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the NoochieCast, episode 6. We are at 6 episodes. That means we've been doing this for a month and a half. That's amazing. That's so much time. Thank you for joining me on episode 6. I don't know. We're still in mid-February, which means that there's still not that much happening. We're past the point in 2013 when PlayStation announced the PS4. I believe it was February 20th, 2013. So just about exactly 7 years. And we still haven't heard a peep about PS5, except for those couple little things that they announced, those little details that they just, scratched across. These crumbs that they just whoo from the rafters. But other than that, really nothing. So we're a little concerned about that. Otherwise, I want to get right into the news because as it is mid-February, there's really not that much going on, except for a couple big ones, but not too much going on. So first one on the list today is that PlayStation is skipping GDC and PAX East for coronavirus concerns. So obviously we're all familiar with the coronavirus. It's a shitty beer that no one likes. Ha ha ha. I know, it's a good joke. It's actually a deadly virus that is killing thousands and thousands of people across the world, and it's spreading really quickly and is actually really concerning for a lot of people. And PlayStation is skipping GDC and PAX East for those concerns. There are a couple other publishers that skipped it as well. PlayStation isn't alone. I think this is notable just because PlayStation is skipping E3 too. E3 also, not E3 too. Oof, I can't imagine there would be a sequel to E3. And now that they're skipping GDC and PAX East, it's they're not really going to any conventions. I'm sure they are going to PAX Prime, things like that. I'm actually not sure when PAX Prime is. We're one of the other PAXs, some of the other conventions that are smaller, but GDC is a big one, and they always, especially in a console release year, this is a year that they need to be a GDC, and they're not going to be, apparently. So I don't know. I don't know how much this is a change of plans for them. Obviously, they were going to be there, and for example, at PAX East, they announced that there was going to be a hands-on demo of The Last of Us Part 2, and then now they're canceling that because they're not going to be there. But were they going to announce something big at GDC about the PS5, and then now they're not going to, or were they really just not going to say anything like they did at CES? And it was just whatever, we'll push it back. No one knows. I can't imagine that there's something major that they were going to announce at either of them, other than, Last of Us Part 2 does come out in just a couple months, so we are getting to the point where we want to start seeing some of that, although I am still in a media blackout for it, so I won't be seeing it. But we'll see. It seems like they're probably going to do their own event, although, like I mentioned, it's past the time that they did it in 2013, so we'll see. Hopefully it's coming up soon if they're doing their own event. Maybe they're seeing what happens with the coronavirus, and that's actually pushing back their plans. Who knows? We'll see about that. I just think it's interesting that they're really kind of acting scared from the coronavirus, they're fucking nerds. They actually have valid concerns there. But they are reacting to it, and it will be interesting to see, coronavirus in general, where that goes. We would think that they're starting to work, or there is some kind of cure or vaccine or something coming for it that could help people, or it could just be that it kind of I don't want to use this word, but it kind of dies out, or it the people start to not spread it, the quarantine start to work, and then PlayStation kind of, I don't know, they're not really related, you know what I'm saying? But the coronavirus is a big deal. Hopefully the scientists who are much smarter than me can figure something out soon. I'm just going to sit here, inside as I do for 24 hours a day, and hopefully not get infected by it. And hopefully PlayStation is allowed to start doing their events too. Next on the news, the Microsoft Flight Simulator. This one's just kind of dumb, but I love it. Microsoft Flight Simulator will have every airport in the world. Every airport. That's like 40,000 airports. Are you fucking joking? Like, I wasn't kidding last week when I said it was one of my most anticipated games of the year. But, like, maybe at that point it was at, like, 10 if we were ranking them. I didn't rank them. If you were listening last week, I absolutely did not rank them. But maybe if I did, this would have been at, like, 9 or 10. But now it's, like, up to, like 6. Maybe even 5 on my most anticipated games of the year. Every airport. This game is going to be absurdly big. And I am so excited for it. All right, next. 2 more, actually. First one is that this one is just I don't understand it. Untitled Goose Game wins Game of the Year at the DICE Awards. Like, I get Untitled Goose Game a little bit. I get that it's a meme. I get that it's funny. I get that it's well made. It's not the fucking game of the year. Like, I know, so my game of the year was Death Stranding. I know that not everyone's game of the year was Death Stranding. I know that's a pretty polarizing game, and you either liked it or you didn't. And I understand why that wouldn't have won game of the year. But, like, come on. Sekiro came out. Control came out. A lot of other games came out that I just can't even think of how this game wins it. I heard some people talking and saying, like, it was such a divided year in that there was no real front runner for what game of the year was, that what probably ended up happening was that of their list of nominees, the other 4, I think it was 5 total, so the other 4 just split the votes so evenly that Untitled Goose Game just ended up winning because it was in its own category, and then the other ones were like, if they all got 19% and this one got 22% or something, then that's why it won. But, like, I just don't understand how the DICE Awards are like the awards. They're like, if the Game Awards are the Oscars, the DICE Awards are like the SAG Awards. Like, they're the very technical awards. And come on, this was not I don't know. I strongly disagree. I understand why it was given to it. I understand for sure why it was nominated, because it was a game that did something new for, like, that I've never seen before in meme potential. But I'm just a little kind of confused. All right, next is that there was a big Nintendo Direct this week. Now, I don't want to really go into a lot of detail about it because I am not the person to talk about it. Now, it was on Animal Crossing New Horizons, which comes out in just under a month. February or March 20th, I believe. It was I believe it's the same day as Doom Eternal, which is just, kind of it's a big day for games. So kind of a fucking weird gamut that it's running, where it's Animal Crossing, which is like, hey, you want to just, like, live in a society, but it's not your own society? Or Doom Eternal, which is, hey, do you want to run around hell and beat the shit out of demons for 17 hours? Anyway, Animal Crossing. Okay, full disclosure, never played an Animal Crossing game. Even, like, Animal Crossing and things like Stardew Valley and even, like, The Sims, things like that, where they're, like, life simulators in a way. They've never been my biggest thing. Not because I don't like them, but it's just because they take so much time, and I'm the kind of person who, like, wants to jump back and forth between all these different games instead of just sit down and put 100 hours into a game building my like, thing. So I just never really gotten into one. But the way everyone talks about Animal Crossing, even more than they talk about something like Stardew, it just makes me want to play it really bad. And the footage from New Horizons looks cool. It looks like an Animal Crossing game, which is great. And I'm at least my interest has been piqued. I'm a little interested. I'm thinking about it. But we'll see. But there was the Nintendo Direct. They announced it looks like Minecraft in some ways, which is weird. But like you can like customize your thing. You can craft a lot and talk to other villagers. I don't know, fucking Animal Crossing terms. And yeah, it's like the game about getting loans. So that's the news. Again, this week, I wasn't playing that much, mostly because I was reviewing a game. And I did write that review, and it is out. You can go see it on gamingbolt.com. That was for Rugby 20. Now, if it's a little inside info, Rugby 20, I was tasked to review it. And yet I am American, as you can tell, by everything about me. And, I've been to Europe. I've been to Australia. But, I've never really been that into rugby. I played it a couple times in gym class in, like, high school. And that was where I get the general idea of what the rules are. But, I kind of went into Rugby 20 blind in terms of understanding the game. And I will say, I kind of understand it now. A little bit more, just slightly more. Other than that, though, Rugby 20, kind of a hot mess. Like, you can read my review, but the mechanics of the game, fine. They're okay. Things work sometimes, not always. But, like, whoo boy, everything else around there. Like, the modes, fuck if they're not there. They don't exist. There's, like, 2 of them. They're bad. They're just not. It's like, I think the way I phrased it was, it's a thinly veiled way of playing the same rugby match over and over again, which, I think is fair enough. Like, it's just, you're playing a league, and you're like, okay, well, I'm actually just playing the one team, and I don't have control of this team for more than one season, so, like, what's the point of really trying, instead of just, like, having a franchise like all other major sports games do? Or you're making My Squad, which is just FIFA Ultimate Team, but not as good, and then you're taking it in, like, one of these divisions, and you're trying to make your way up the divisions, but, like, it's basically just doing the same thing, and when you move up, it's just you're playing a little bit better of a team, and, like, there's a money management thing, but it's so, like, thin that it really doesn't matter at all. So, you know what, I did not enjoy it. I gave it a 5, which I think is fair. There was enjoyment in some moments within the matches, but otherwise, everything around it, not great, Bob. The other game I've been playing a little bit was Call of Duty Modern Warfare. It's just one of those things where I live in a location, and it's nice to with people, and it's nice to play games with those people sometimes. So Modern Warfare. Yeah, it's just playing Call of Duty. Other than that, my week is kind of taken up by rugby. So, yeah. But to our main story for the day, I want to move on. We've really not been going for that long, honestly. We've been going for like 15 minutes. But I do want to take just a little bit of time to talk about my main story and talk about some of my hottest game takes. My most controversial opinions. I think these are controversial opinions. I can't always be right on the button of what is correct and what is really against the norm, but just based on, people I talk to, groups I'm in, things I see online, I think these are all relatively, like, steaming hot takes. Some of them, have cooled down a bit. Some of them are like a 3 on the stove, but some of them are like, you're at 6 and you're turning it and you're like, it's breaking off. You know what I mean? So, number 1 and 2 are actually just lists of overrated and underrated games, mostly they're all from this generation, just because that's what I was thinking of. I'm sure I have others that I could bring up at some point. But first, I want to start with some of my overrated games. And the first one is probably my steamingest of steaming hot takes, but it's also one I've discussed before, so I'm not gonna badger on about it. And that's The Witcher 3. Like, I don't know what to tell you guys. I didn't like it. I really did not like The Witcher 3. Like I've said in the past, it's probably my most inexplicable gaming take, because I understand from every perspective why it's a good game and why people generally enjoy it, in that, like, the story is really well written and the world is well fleshed out and it's really well realized, and there's so much going on environmentally where you're just like riding across and you'll like see a landscape and you're like, oh, cool, or you'll run past someone and you'll like, they'll be like, oh, help, and you try to talk to them, and then you get into like a 40-hour side mission, and that's all great, but it just didn't click with me. I think one of the things is that I just don't love the fantasy genre, and the games that I do like in that are outliers. So like a Skyrim, and I mean like a Game of Thrones, every story in that I love, even season 8, which was really good. But other than that, like, I've just never, something like Dragon Age, I've never really been that into either. So I'm thinking it's just that I just don't love fantasy, which might have turned me off. And then the combat, which I think is a lot of people's biggest flaw in it, in that I just didn't think the combat, it felt kind of airy, like you were swinging in air. It was one of those kinds of things. And I found it kind of hard, and I just didn't think it was, it just didn't click. Like, you know what I mean? Even like parts of the movement, I don't know. It just, when I was moving around, I was just like, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, most inexplicable game take. I'm trying to come up with reasons. I don't know if I can. I think it was the combat and the setting that just didn't click with me personally. And like, by every way of looking at it, every objective sense of the word, it's a good game, but I just don't like it. I just don't. And I'm glad I didn't have to review it. Like, I'm glad I didn't have to be objective about it, because, like, even I probably would have given it, like, a 6 or a 7, and, like, everyone else is giving it, like, 9s and 10s and shit. But, like, I don't even know, man. I can't explain it. I can't. But it just is. It's just that. Next one, my other overrated game that I want to talk about is, actually, I just thought of a third one that, I want to mention in there, and I'm going to type it in right now because I don't want to forget about it. But anyway, second on this is Hellblade. I don't remember if I talked about this in my games of the decade thing, because talking about like disappointing games, but oh my fucking god, I did not like Hellblade at all. And this is a very explicable one. I thought, like, everyone beats off Hellblade because it takes on a mental health issue, which not many games do, or at least not many games did. A lot of them do it now. It's kind of becoming a trope. But it takes on a mental health issue and does it in like a weird psychological horror kind of way. And like, you know, it's another fantasy setting. Maybe I just hate fantasy, but the reason I don't like Hellblade is in my opinion, it is so caught up with itself. Like, it's so caught up with the idea of being a mental health story that it forgets that there's a game in there that needs to be made. And so it's like, oh, I'm going crazy, and I'm like, I'm, my health and my mental is going nowhere. And there's no game there. Like, the game is the combat, and the combat just sucks ass. And the story around it is like, whatever. Like, it wasn't breaking new ground. It didn't blow me away. I guess the only part I could see is like the adventuring part, where you're like the part where you're like looking at things and you're trying to like make shapes out of things and you're solving puzzles. But even the puzzles were kind of boring at points and annoying. There were some of them that I liked. Like, I'm not saying this game is a 0 out of 10. Like, this game's probably like a 5 to me. But I just think it's one of the most like overrated in terms of what my opinion on it is compared to everyone else's general opinion on it. Because I think it's so caught up with itself in being a mental health game that it forgets that there actually needs to be a game there. And I did not enjoy the experience of it. I went in being like kind of on that same page where I was like, this is a game that's strictly about mental health, and that's a cause I support, and this is a game that I really want to be good, and I really want to enjoy, and I hope it pulls it off well. And I was just like I got as good of an experience knowing that there was a game about mental health as I did playing it, because I didn't there was nothing that it really added to it, that it didn't teach me anything. It didn't give me not fun. This isn't it's not supposed to be a fun game, but it didn't give me an enjoyable or a thoughtful experience. I don't think I think that's a good word for it. It wasn't really that thoughtful. And when I was looking at it, I thought it was going to be, and I think that's what it should have been for it to be really stand out. But anyway, the other one that I just thought of is a game that I ranted on this channel for 25 minutes at one point. So you go look at that if you want to hear how bad I thought this game was. And that's The Evil Within. Holy fucking God, I hate The Evil Within. It might be my least favorite game of the generation, just straight up. That came out in 2014. So this generation. Fucking, oh my God. I hate that game. Every part of it. The combat, not good. The story, not good. The graphics, I don't fucking know, not good. The scares, nope. I can't even think of words on why I don't like it. It's the combat is in such, I heard someone call it was someone in one of their things that they were saying was that it felt like the chapters could have been shuffled. They just made a bunch of chapters individually and independently from each other, and then they just pressed shuffle, and that was how the game was made. Fuck if I know if that's how it was made, but it feels like it, because none of them are related, and the difficulty curve is isn't. It's not a curve. It's just a bunch. It's just like a graph of going up and down, and I don't even know, man. It's just not good. Don't play it. I hated it. I own The Evil Within 2, and I wanted to play it. I wanted it to be good, and I just didn't like it at all. So games that I really liked, were a couple underrated games, and these are ones I've probably talked about a bit. But first one is Mass Effect Andromeda. If you take out the controversy of the Mass Effect games, because everyone hated the ending of 3, even though, the ending of 3 wasn't fucking the next Kill a Mockingbird, but it wasn't. I don't think it was that bad. It was. In terms of boiling down 3 games worth of things into 3 choices, yeah, I understand it. One, they created free DLC for everyone that expanded on it, so you're welcome. But also, just because the ending wasn't great doesn't mean the game wasn't good. And the game was fantastic. Mass Effects 1, 2, and 3 were all amazing. And Andromeda was you take all of that controversy out, and you're just here's a new game. It basically, it's a Mass Effect game in structure and in mechanics, but in story, it's just a new game. And story-wise, it's not not as good as the other Mass Effect games for sure, but mechanically, it's still a Mass Effect game, and it was really good, and I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was really cool learning about all the characters. I still love going around to planets and then going back to the hub area. I forget what the hub area was called, the new Citadel. That one, I just love doing that. It was a game that just hooked me, that I just didn't want to stop playing. And just doing all the side missions for everyone. It's just so much fun. So that's probably my biggest underrated game from the generation, just because I guess I see the hate from it because it wasn't as good as Mass Effects 2 or 3. But I think it was better than 1, in my opinion. I think it goes probably 3, 2, Andromeda 1 in my rankings, although 3 and 2 are pretty much even for me. So yeah, I think people give it shit because they know what the other games were. But if it came out and it were like just another game that wasn't related to Mass Effect, obviously it would be like a Mass Effect clone. But I think it would have still gotten good remarks. I don't know. And the other one that I'm saying, one of my hot takes on a game that was actually a lot better than people gave it credit for, was Batman Arkham Knight. And not because people said it was bad, because I don't think people did. They like, it wasn't a bad game, and I don't think you can say that it was. I think people were just mad because it took away what made Arkham City and Arkham Asylum so good, and it took it away by inserting in the Batmobile. But, like, it was still ridiculously fun. Like, I liked the Batmobile parts. I understand why people didn't, and how it kind of fucks with the lore of like all of Batman, where he's just like yeeting or like dudes with his car, and like there's no chance none of them die. So it's one of those things, but and they have like guns on them and shit. Like, yeah, okay, but still, I just think it was such a good experience. Like, I wasn't even the biggest fan of the whole Joker subplot, and I still thought it was really good. Like, I thought the whole, like, the Arkham Knight thing was fun, although it wasn't, even as someone who isn't, like, the biggest Batman fan in terms of, like, the lore and all the comic books and everything, like, the Arkham Knight subplot was, like, cool, and I generally understood what was happening, even if it was a little predictable for people. I still love Scarecrow. Scarecrow is my favorite Batman villain, like, probably up there with Joker, but, like, my non-mainstream villain is Scarecrow. And I just thought it was really cool to have them in. Like, it's still an Arkham game where the combat is still genre-defining, like, literally genre-defining, and the story was really well written, and it was just fun. Like, say what you will about if this fits the lore or whatever, but it was just so much fun. It was just a Batman game that I really enjoyed. So, I don't think it deserves all the hate it gets for some of the other things. I am fucking ready for another Rocksteady game. Rocksteady. But, yeah, I just don't get the hate for it. All right, on to other hot takes. I have 3 other big hot takes that I want to explain myself for. And again, I think these are hot. I don't know. But I'm going to, my last one, I've saved the hottest, the meatiest hot take, like the sun hot take for last. But the next 2 are maybe hot, maybe kind of, just against the tide. I don't fucking know. But moving to number 3, that last gen, so PlayStation 3, the PS3 generation of first-party PlayStation exclusives, so just first-party games, not like just games made by studios that Sony owned at the time they were made, were better than this generation. And you know what, I'll say of any studio that they now own, because I'm going to include the Infamous games and Spider-Man in these in this list of first-party games. I'm not actually going to list them all out, but I'm just going to say, like, in general, last gen's first-party PlayStation exclusives were better than this generation's so far. Now, obviously, this is excluding The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima. So if those 2 come out and they are the 2 greatest games ever made, great, and I will probably change my opinion. But when you think about last generation's first parties, especially starting in like 2009 probably, because 2009 was when the first Infamous came out and Uncharted 2 came out. Those, and Little Big Planet 2 came out. Or no. Yeah, one of the Little Big Planets came out that year too. Those were all like changing the tide on what exclusive games were. like how big budget and massive like those exclusive games were. Not defining what a system seller was, because those obviously existed, but like to have an Uncharted 2 in your repertoire, as well as Uncharted 1 and Uncharted 3 and The Last of Us from one studio, and then you go to Sucker Punch and you have Infamous 1 and Infamous 2, and then you have all of the Little Big Planets up to that, like Little Big Planet 1 and 2, and then what else do you have? You got like, I don't know, are we counting Vita games? Things like Uncharted Golden Abyss, things like that, like the Killzones, the Resistance games. It's hard for me to, like new Ratchet and Clanks, it's hard for me to compare that, because now you look at this generation where they've clearly gone for a much more quality over quantity thing, which is great. But when you have big games that have hit, and you have a God of War, which a lot of people, I don't necessarily think it's the greatest game ever, but a lot of people think it's like the best game of the generation, and it's like a must play for everyone. Like 10 out of 10, and that's great. So you have that, you have Uncharted 4, which was really good. Then like Spider-Man was obviously really good. That was my game of the year that year. Death Stranding isn't a first party game. It was like, so I don't think I'm going to count it, but like, even if we're talking exclusives, like I guess that can count too. But then what? Like, what do you have after that? Knack? No. Like, I'm sure I'm forgetting something. Like something like Infamous Second Son, not even close to as good as the other Infamous games. And I loved Second Son. Like Second Son was so good. I love Delson. I love that whole thing. I love Seattle. But it wasn't as good as Infamous 1 or 2, because Delson wasn't as cool of a character as Cole. And I don't think he ever could have been. But like what else is happening? The problem is that you have misses. Like you have major misses this generation. And maybe it's because I might be looking back with some rose-colored glasses. So forgive me on that. But even with like you have misses like Days Gone. And I feel like there's been more love for that game recently than when it came out. But still, like it's kind of just like a 7-year like a 7-year development time to create kind of a generic zombie shooter, open world. I forgot Horizon Zero Dawn, so that would be one that would be good for this generation. But like at that point, you have maybe four to five major hits for first party AAA games. Dreams right now, we'll see where that goes. It's really good. I'm gonna kind of let it play out, because it's one of those games that has a lifetime, and it doesn't just release and it's there. Like it exists for a long time. So maybe we'll revisit this in a while. But I just think when you have a generation that has all like the first 3 Uncharted games and The Last of Us and the Infamous games and the Little Big Planet games and the Resistance games and like the Killzone games, it's and other games that I'm sure I'm forgetting, like Journey. That wasn't it was an exclusive, but it wasn't a first party game. But if we're gonna count Death Stranding, I'm gonna count Journey, and like that game just blew my mind. I just can't. I don't think you. I get for sure getting quality over quantity. Like I 100% agree with it too. But when you have the quality of the games at the quantity you were getting in the PS3 era, and part of it is because development times have gone longer. Like development cycles are now like 3-ish years instead of 2 for a lot of games, because they're so big and so like fleshed out and so pretty. But you had years at the start of this generation from like 2014 and 15 until 2016 where there were almost no major first party exclusive released in the fall. And that isn't a thing that I could see with the last generation. Now, again, I kind of started thinking about it in 2009-ish. I know there were games before that. I mean, the original Uncharted, things like that. But And maybe I'm putting too much scrutiny on the new, this generation, because I just know it more recently, because it's more recent, it's more fresh. But just looking at this straight up list of games, I think last generation's first parties were better than this generation's. Talk to me at the end of the year when The Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima have hopefully launched. Next, my fourth hot take. This one is the one that I think is not that much of a hot take, but when you look at what companies are doing, it is absolutely against what they are doing. And this is more of just stating my opinion than really making a hot take, but that is, press conferences are better than directs or states of play or whatever those like mini little release things are. In that press conferences at an E3 or like even like a PSX or a Tokyo Game Show or Gamescom or whatever, are, in my opinion, those are kind of the gold standard of any announcement. Like, not even just games, like any kind of announcement format. When you look at like an Apple keynote when they're announcing the new iPhone or things like that, they don't do it over in like a 20-minute like pre-made video that is just like, oh, hey, what's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. Here's our new iPhone that you're going to buy for $1,000 and is going to sell 1 billion units. Like, they don't do that. They go in and they're like, hey, here's a real person, and we're going to talk about, like, here's the new iPhone, and here's why you're going to buy it. I understand why they've gone to this new direct state of play kind of thing, because it's a lot cheaper and it's a lot more effective at getting the news across when you want it to. So it's kind of like, it's a win-win, because you don't have to save all your news for one time of the year, and you can dominate a conversation whenever you want during the year. So like I was talking about earlier, Nintendo did an Animal Crossing Direct for just a couple days ago. They dominated the news conversation that day. Nothing else was happening, so they just took over that conversation. But can you imagine if they had done that at E3, or if they had their own event, or like they, I don't know, some other, like at TGS or something, and they had just gone in and had a press conference, they said, so they took all of the directs from the year, and they said, so Animal Crossing, Pokemon, like Smash Bros, all of these things in an hour, and it's just bang, 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 because that's what press conferences used to be. And like Xbox still does it well. I think Xbox is kind of hitting where some of the, like, they're having some of the best press conferences ever, every E3, other than like a couple of those standout PlayStation ones from a couple of years ago. They are absolutely killing it, because they're like news. They take no time. Every moment is important. And those are the kinds of press conferences that just get you hyped, because you're just excited all the time. Whereas with like states of play, it's like, okay, here's 20 minutes, and maybe like here's a new trailer for like fucking, I don't know, Watam. Is that how you say it? Watam. That takes up like a quarter of the thing. And also here's like a teaser for The Last of Us or something like that. And it just feels like a press conference, just like the Watam kind of thing, would have been in a sizzle reel, where you would have seen it and been able to dissect it, but The Last of Us would have had 10 minutes on stage. And I just kind of miss, maybe this is just me mourning the death of E3 and press conferences as a big major thing, because having no PlayStation at E3 and no like EA there anymore, who doesn't, or at least last year didn't really do a press conference. We'll see what they do this year. And you know, it's just as someone who grew up, basically those Mondays of E3 were like was one of my favorite days of the year. It was like Christmas morning, waking up and seeing the Xbox press conference in the morning. Now seeing them all kind of die is just kind of sad for me. But it is, as a fan, press conferences are just so hype. Like, they're just so many moments of hype in press conferences versus like a state of play, where yes, they can control the narrative and when it's releasing, and like you're not gonna fuck up in a direct, because if you do, you just edit it out and reshoot it. But press conferences are just so much fun. Yeah, that one just kind of makes me sad. But moving on to the last hot take I have, and this one is kind of a doozy, and this is one I think I'm going to delve into next week when in my main story, as long as nothing major happens. But this is that my hot take is that Xbox has had a better generation than PlayStation. I know, like you're listening to that and you're like, holy fuck, who is this guy? Who does this guy think he is? I know, I say that up to myself all the time, but you look at sales, and far and away, PlayStation is at a better generation. That's not debatable. Like that, in terms of making a cultural impact and making a console that people want to buy and becoming the standard console that's like even when you're saying, oh yeah, I just want to go home and play something, like play X. It used to be, oh, I just want to go home and play my Nintendo, or I just want to go home and play my Xbox. Now it's, I want to go home and play my PlayStation or my PS4 or whatever. And I think that's usually a general good idea on what's kind of winning the generation. And clearly, PlayStation has sold like 110 million units. Obviously, it's selling better. It is the more successful console, in quotes. But I think what happened is a lot of that came from the one day when Xbox announced the Xbox One, in that PlayStation was basically just like, they didn't do anything like particularly incredibly awesome. It was just they didn't fuck up on the way to launch, between when they announced and launched. They had a good E3 that year. They had like good promo videos, like that video with Shuhei Yoshida and Adam Boyes like handing over how to do a used game, and Xbox was just like over there. They didn't shoot themselves in the foot. They took like an AK and kind of fucking in their foot. You know what I mean? They just fucked it up from that. And then Don Matrick gets fired or leaves, whatever, probably got fired. And Phil Spencer takes over, and suddenly Xbox is like innovating and like growing their business in not necessarily in sales, but in investments and in like, here's what we're trying to do, and like looking towards the future. And PlayStation honestly is kind of in a holding pattern. Like they're so successful in what they were doing that I haven't seen them really do anything. They bought Insomniac, I guess, but they already had that relationship with them. And like, other than that, I guess they launched PlayStation Now, but that's been kind of a weird rollout. I'm not even sure what PlayStation Now is right now. Like, I think it's supposed to be like Game Pass and streaming in one, but like Xbox did backwards compatibility. Like, remember when that was just a whole thing that people thought wasn't possible or wasn't going to happen, or that the publishers were just like, no, we're not going to do it? Xbox was like, yeah, we're going to do it. And then they did the Game Pass. Then Game Pass was announced, and that kind of fucking revolutionized gaming. I had my like ode to Game Pass a couple weeks ago, because Game Pass is one of my favorite services of anything ever. And like, that's how I game mostly. Like, I get a lot of my games from Game Pass. And then they come out and they buy like 7 studios, including Obsidian and Ninja Theory and like Playground and things like that. And they're just building their portfolio. And then they're doing xCloud. Like, you look at, from a high level, you see PlayStation is doing a lot better, and you're like, wow, PlayStation must be fucking innovating and doing shit really, really well. And like, yes, they're doing things really well, but in my opinion, they're doing the same things really well. And Xbox is out there failing a lot. Like, not everything is working. The Kinect, remember when the Kinect was a thing? Like, I don't even know how successful backwards compatibility has been, but like, optics-wise, it's incredible. And then they're out here saying like, oh, Amazon and Google are our main competitors and things like that. and it's a little weird what they've done sometimes, but in terms of service, like services that they provided and growth that they provided, or that they've like kind of had in their portfolio, Xbox has just fucking blown PlayStation out of the water, in my opinion. Again, I want to get into this more because I kind of want to go through a timeline of things that have happened, but that's my hot take there, is that Xbox has just had, in terms of not just sales, in terms of everything else outside of like straight up games, Xbox has had a much better generation. Yeah, so those are some of my hot takes. I don't actually know if they're particularly hot for some of them, but they're hot to me, and that's all that matters. So that will end this week's NoochieCast. Thank you for listening. Like I said, I'm probably going to delve into that Xbox versus PlayStation this generation conversation, kind of discussion, look back next week, assuming nothing huge happens, which we'll see, maybe not. But in the meantime, thank you for listening, and I will see you next week.